Welcome back. In this, our third lecture of the week, we're going to look at some of the things that can influence our decision making. Now, many of the things that we have already discussed this semester, such as looking at culture, looking at groups, looking at our family, things like this, can have an influence on the specific products that we end up buying. But oftentimes what we're looking at here is that what can alter us or change us or influence us to actually decide that we need to make a decision. And that's where the importance comes in for this lecture. Now this model looks a little complicated, but just bear with me as we go through it here. We can look at this as basically the complete model of consumer behavior. And if we look at, for example, the word start, and we go down from there, we see the decision-making process, need recognition, search, evaluate alternatives, purchase, and the outcomes that occur when we look at our post-purchase decision-making. And again, if we look at each one of these, well, think about what influences our need recognition. Part of it could be our exposure to a new product, could be the attention, comprehension. These are things that marketers work to influence greatly with their advertisements, with their promotions, and things like this. But it also lends into our memory and how our memory is influenced by what we have seen and what we have learned in the past. So we have internal search, but we also have what we say is external search. So we have all of these different things that are basically influencing the overall model of our decision making. But let's go back and just put things into a little bit neater perspective, if you will. So in short, we could basically look at the buying decision process, or the decision-making process, is again problem recognition, searching for information, evaluate the alternatives, make the purchase decision, and then that post-purchase evaluation of either being satisfied or dissatisfied. Well, we can look over here that perceptions, our learning, motivations, our personalities, culture, microcultures, everything is going to have an influence on maybe what we perceive and what we think about. But in general, what can marketers do? For example, if your culture dictates that you look at and buy this type of product, marketers really have very little chance of altering that unless they can get you to break from your culture, which is not something we want to do or something that could easily be done. But there are other things that we can do as marketers. For example, in problem recognition. Well, if you look at it, when the actual state and the ideal state are matched, there's really no problem. If the actual state is that we have milk and the ideal state is that we have milk, we really do not need to buy milk. But what happens if the ideal state is increased? What happens if we push that up a little bit, if you will? Then there is going to be a disconnect between our actual state and the ideal state. And what this basically is that it provides us with an opportunity. For example, I spend a lot of time, one of my passions is I love to grill. I love my grill. I love cooking on my grill. And of course, because of that, I use a lot of barbecue sauce, and I use a lot of different seasonings and things like this. Well, the actual state, in terms of, I guess, my grilling, is that I have barbecue sauce on hand. So you would think that, well, if I have it, I don't need it. But what happens if a marketer puts the barbecue sauce that I typically buy on sale? What if they have a buy one, get one offer? Do I buy it? Most likely yes, because the ideal state is going to be much better for me than just what I normally have in the pantry, which is probably half a bottle. Well, the idea of being able to buy two for the price of one, having it stocked up already, motivates me because it gives me that opportunity to buy more. But as we know that when the actual state is lower than the ideal state, this is where that need recognition comes in, and we can go back to it of, the ideal state is that I have barbecue sauce. The actual state, I am out of barbecue sauce. Then there's basically going to be this need. But what's going to cause me to take action? Part of that's going to come from my motivation, the abilities I have, and the opportunities that occur for me to be able to rectify that ideal and actual state, rectify that imbalance, if you will. Now, a classic example is that if we go back in time and we look, here are basically what was available to kids wanting tennis shoes or sneakers or kicks or whatever whatever you'll call them today. But again, this was the norm. You could have them in different color, you could have them in canvas, or you could have them in canvas. So, if this is what it was, and there were other brands besides the All-Star brand. There was, Converse had theirs. Converse All-Stars. There were high tops, there were low tops, but this was basically a very standard sneaker. Well, what do? Well, maybe you can change what the ideal state is. You could have a good working pair of tennis shoes, but something can change. What could change? Well, you could have a new product come on the market, and you could have a new spokesperson, Michael Jordan. I mean, a relatively, he wasn't unknown, but he was unproven, coming out of North Carolina, and Nike spent almost all of their marketing budget to sign him, and all of a sudden, the old Converse All-Stars just weren't cutting it. So everybody now wanted these Nike Air Jordans. So it changed. It changed what was out there, what was available, and it basically changed what our ideal state actually should be. We can change ideal states in many other ways. Think about just a basic shopping cart or a shopping bag when you go to a retail store, to a clothing store or something. Again, it's just a very basic bag, right? Well, some started adding different colors that made it very nice, but that just moved that ideal state a little bit. There really wasn't a lot of difference between, say, a yellow bag and one that was basically brown. But then companies started doing a little bit more to their bags to make them stand out. For example, the one on the left, this is a Saks Fifth Avenue bag. All of a sudden it became stylish, it became chic to carry a Saks Fifth Avenue bag. Or a Tiffany bag. Having that, people just, people have a different way of looking at you when you are carrying a bag like this. So again, all of these different things is that things that companies can do to alter what that ideal state actually is. So how can I change your information search? How can I change these parameters? One, this is where branding and logos come into play. Oftentimes we put images in our mind based on what the logo is. For example, if I show you any of these, the red circle, that's going to be, it's as Target. The one next to it, basically the globe, well, Wikipedia, right? And then the little boy fishing on the moon, yeah, you got it. And then the one right there with the little cat, well, Hello Kitty. And then we have the horse. Okay, I'm assuming that everybody is going to know that's Ferrari, and nobody's going to miss what the Coca-Cola bottle is going to be, right? So, I mean, just by looking at these, I mean, you go from either DreamWorks all the way out to any logo, any brand that's out there. It makes our job as consumers much simpler because we're able to recognize what these are. I don't have to process it the next time I see it. So again, putting together strong logos, putting together strong branding helps consumers to process the information much easier, and it also gravitates them toward a particular brand because of that comfort level, if you will. The other things that I can do, I mean, if you think about what is the kickoff to the Thanksgiving Day Parade, well, it's Macy's. Okay, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, it's been a staple, it's been around for, centuries, or decades, not centuries, decades. But again, it's one of the things that it does is that it links the concept of Macy's with the concept of the season that's about to start. Because if you think about it, if you've ever watched this parade, what's the last thing that comes down the line? Well, it's Santa Claus. Okay? Kicking off, and now we're kicking off the Christmas season. Macy's, Christmas, this relationship, this connection has been very strong for Macy's, which is one of the reasons why they go to so much effort to put on this parade. Now, some other interesting things that marketers have done is they've gotten a little creative with how to get their message or their brand or just their logo across to people. I'm sure all of you recognize this as a QR code, and how basically you just hold it up to your camera or your phone and it will take you directly to a web page. Well, sometimes, yeah, that's great, but can we get creative with it? Can we do things that are going to make people talk, make them want to share and pass on some of the information that we have? Well, Guinness has found a way to say, yeah, we can. So here shows that Guinness basically created a QR cup, or QR glass basically, and it's a product activated QR code. So again, if you have the empty glass on the left, you see nothing. You pour a regular beer into this glass, you get nothing. It's not going to register. But if you fill this glass with a pint of Guinness, you're going to see the QR code. You can then scan your beer glass with your phone, and you can basically go online automatically, and you can post to your social media, hey, I'm having a pint, here's where I am, depending on, if you're using Foursquare or Twitter or whatever it's going to be. They've tapped into this because, again, is it going to be used a lot? Probably not. But just the idea of being able to tap into people's need with something very simple. And that's what being creative, that's what marketers need to be focusing on today. So that's it for this week's lectures. So keep in mind, you still have a quiz to go for this week, and there is a discussion question posted that you should work on and think about and record your answers for. So next week, I'm not going to have a recorded lecture just because of the shortness of the week, given the time frame. I will expect you to read Solomon chapter 10 and answer the quiz, and also there will be a discussion question that pops up next week as well. I'll probably have all of that done by Sunday night, so you can look forward to that. So I guess this is the last video lecture that we're going to have. So I just want to take a moment to thank the few of you, and it's actually very few. I think there's only about 5 or 6 that have actually watched the majority of the videos and stuck with it and participated very well. I do appreciate it. It's been a new experience. It's been a challenge, but y'all have done what you're supposed to do, which speaks highly of you, and I think it will pay off in your careers if you keep doing what you're supposed to do. So thank you very much, and good luck.